One of the biggest struggles in military history was between the Greeks and the Persians during the Persian Wars in the 5th century BCE. The Persian Wars lasted from 500 to 449 BCE. During this time, Greece was not united as one country. Instead, they were city-states. A city-state is a city and its countryside. They were independent, and each city-state had its own government, religion, and way of farming. Persia, at the time, had the biggest and richest empire. Persia is now in modern-day Iran. All the cities in Greece banded together to protect their homeland from Xerxes, king of Persia, and his massive Persian army. One of the most important battles of the Persian War was the Battle of Thermopylae. When Darius the Great died, his son Xerxes became king of Persia around 486 BCE. Xerxes wanted to continue his father's legacy. Darius the Great and his son Xerxes had a common goal as kings. They wanted to have the greatest army and empire at the time and wipe out their enemies. Xerxes wanted to conquer Greece because his father, Darius the Great, had failed at Marathon, Greece. He was defeated by the Athenians in 490 BCE. It took Xerxes over 4 years to gather troops and supplies from his kingdom to defeat the Greeks. He gathered an army of 70,000 to 300,000 men and was able to conquer Egypt and Babylonia. Xerxes thought he was so powerful that his Persian army could easily conquer Greece. He was demanding that all the places he conquered bow down to his wishes. Xerxes thought the Greeks would bow down to him just like other countries he had conquered. The Greeks were so outraged when a messenger sent from Persia tried to make them bow down to Xerxes, and they tossed him into a pit. After the messenger came with news that the Persians were planning to attack their homeland, many Greek city-states formed the Pan-Hellenic League in 481 BCE to stop the Persians. The women and children went to Peloponnesus in southern Greece for safety. In the spring of the next year, Xerxes and his army started the march from present-day Iran toward Greece. In August of the same year, they were on Greek soil by the Sea of Thermopylae. When the Persians arrived at the Battle of Thermopylae, many of their ships were destroyed by a storm, but Xerxes refused to give up. The Greeks hoped to stop the Persians at Thermopylae. The Persian army did not wear armor to protect themselves from close combat and were trained by archers to use bows and arrows and rode in chariots. On the other hand, Spartans wore armor and had shields to block the arrows. The Spartans were very well trained in close combat. Although Greeks had a smaller army, they were defeating the Persians. Leonidas and his army of 4,900 men were able to hold this position that was 50 foot wide between northern and central Greece for 3 days. All the Greek army realized that they could not beat the Persians, so the Greek war council decided to retreat. All the army retreated except for Leonidas and his 300 bodyguards. They would stay and defend their homeland to their death. For 3 days the Greeks stood strong against the Persians. The Persians were able to defeat the Greeks by outflanking them, by being shown a secret pathway by a spy named Epiphanes, who was from Greece. Leonidas was one of the first Spartans to die in the Battle of Thermopylae, and all the other 300 Spartans also fought to their death. The Persians lost 20,000 men during the battle. After the battle, Xerxes beheaded the Greek king Leonidas and put his head on a spike. He did this to show that the Greeks could be conquered. The rest of the bodies were hidden because he did not want it known that the Greeks almost beat his vast army. On the sea by Thermopylae, the Greek navy was able to charge into the Persian ships and sink them. When the Greeks sank the Persian ships, it weakened their navy. In the following year, the Greeks rebuilt their army and were able to defend their homeland by defeating the Persians at Salamis and Placia. These battles stopped the Persians' plans to conquer Greece. Today, the Spartans are known for being a mighty, dominant, but small group. They were fierce warriors that fought to the death to save their family, country, and their way of life. After the Persian War, the Greek city-states united as one, and this is known as the Golden Age of Athens. This also helped create Western civilization like Europe by establishing their own government and economy.